Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, it's Jesse with the Common Nerd, bringing you pop culture and all things nerdy through a common sense lens. And, you know, the stupidity of Hollywood never ceases to amaze me. At a time when I thought some of these companies had actually kind of learned their lesson and figured out what didn't work and what did work with them telling good stories and doing faithful adaptations to properties that you paid hundreds of millions of dollars for, or in some case billions of dollars for, and then you just completely and totally disrespect the audience and the core fan base out there, which is what you paid all the money for the IP for, was, right? For that core built-in audience, right? That's why when you buy a business, you're actually paying for the customers, not necessarily the stuff on the shelves. It's the same thing with an IP out there, right? Well, we'd heard the rumors not too long ago from Variety saying that, you know, there was going to be a black Snape, that they were race swapping the character, yada, 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 and I was like, there's no way. Warner Brothers, you can't be this dumb. David Zaslav, you can't possibly be this dumb. Please tell me this was just something that was leaked out there to the internet to see how everybody reacted, and once you saw the fan reaction, you would correct course. Well, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, if there's one good thing Warner Brothers can do consistently is completely and totally screw up what a slam dunk should easily be. Because after so many claims of promising a faithful adaptation to the series, which is exactly what I actually wanted, because I really can't stand the most of the movies, especially after 3. Of course, they decide the most iconic, the most well-described character, arguably in the entire series, Snape himself, the guy with pale, sallow skin and long, greasy, flat black hair, is now going to be looking like somebody that's literally out of GQ Africa. Not to mention all of the rest of the implications this means for the overall story of Harry Potter, which we'll get into later, because how do you do this and be so unaware of your source material that you will not realize how this stuff all comes off to be? Or maybe that was all intentional, and Warner Brothers still is just as insane and infected with the cult in certain sections as so many other areas out there. So, boys and girls, we're going to get into this article from Fandom Pulse, getting all of the juicy details of exactly what's been released, and of course, bring up all of the evidence as to why this is completely and totally insane and does not line up with making a faithful adaptation in any way, shape, or form. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, boys and girls, because we are grinding, we are growing, and I could not do that without every single one of you. We just crossed 1,800. We're on our way to 1,900, and if you smash that little subscribe button, it'll get us there even closer. Also, what you think about all this in the comment section down below. Does it surprise you at all that Variety was indeed right, and that HBO Max and Warner Brothers decided to go full bore ahead with this absolute insane casting? Or are you as shocked as some of us out there, hoping that there was no way they were this dumb about this? Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. And if you'd like to support the channel, please check out our links in the description as well. And needless to say, a lot of the fans aren't exactly happy about this either. So let's get into it. From John F. Trent and Fandom Pulse, HBO confirms it will race swap Severus Snape with Paapa Essiedu in Harry Potter TV series. Oh, color us shocked there. Like I said, just when I thought Hollywood and a lot of these other corporations had finally pulled their heads out of their butt, they just go, no, hold my diversity stick and watch this. HBO announced 6 cast members for its upcoming Harry Potter TV series and confirmed that it will race swap Severus Snape with Paapa Essiedu. In a press release, HBO stated that John Lithgow will play Albus Dumbledore, which Lithgow obviously already admitted to this, in a Screen Rant interview like over a month ago at this point, I think now. So obviously knew that one. Janet McTeer will play Minerva McGonagall, which honestly, she looks like she'd be a great casting for that as well. Paapa Essiedu will play Severus Snape, and Nick Frost will play Rubeus Hagrid. And that's one of the actual castings that we also really liked too, was Nick Frost. I really like that idea. I think I've seen him in several things. He was in like Hot Fuzz and a lot of those other silly movies out there, and I really enjoyed him in that. So I think he's got the comedy aspect that you kind of need to play a Hagrid, and also he's got kind of the look, put a little bit of a fat suit or something on him for a little while, and let him grow out his hair and stuff like that. And I think he'd be a perfect Roberta Hagrid. But this is the problem, right? You cannot race swap such an iconic character like Severus Snape, right, that is very well described, and think this is going to go anywhere, because especially the Western audiences, especially the one in America, right? Hollywood has so often told you were an ist and you were a phobe if they race swapped your character, if they gender swapped your character, you were an ist, or if they made your character, LGBT, you were a phobe, and all of this other kind of stuff out there, right? And what the problem with all of that was, it wasn't that just they did those things to the characters, right? They also made it to where the stories were absolute nonsense and absolute garbage. It beat you over the head with identity politics from the beginning to the end, forcing characters into places they didn't need to be. I mean, I saw it with the end of the CW series as things started to go down the hill from there. Everybody all the guys turned into beta soy, little babies, and you saw all the women being, oh, well, the guy, we gotta be back there for the guys, and we gotta do it for them. And I didn't realize at the time for the woke cult and words for things like that, the ideology, the spirit of the age, but that's exactly what it was. And the problem is you have done that for essentially a decade at this point, but Ghostbusters 2016, anyone? So you've essentially done this for a decade. And the audiences have learned now that when you do this, it's not like Samuel L. Jackson with Nick Fury back in the Marvel's MCU days, right, in the highlands of it, because we're everybody loves Samuel L. Jackson. This is great, right? And for the most part, up until Black Girl Magic in the Marvels, everybody pretty much loved that kind of stuff out there, and there was never really the identity politics involved with that. But the problem is, that's one exception that happened 2 decades ago, right? Versus what we've seen over the last decade. Every Harry Potter fan out there, and unless they are an absolute progressive, possessed by the spirit of the age, acolyte of the cult, is not going to want to watch this. They are automatically just going to assume, well, if they're going to race swap this, then why, they've been telling us they were going to be a faithful adaptation, and now they're clearly not going to be by race swapping this very prominent character into a black man. Then why would I trust you to be faithful with anything else? How do I even know you're going to put Peeves in there, which is what I've been asking for since the movies, and a proper Dumbledore that doesn't get angry and yell at Harry? How am I supposed to trust you to do any of those things if you can't even make Snape look like what he's supposed to? Not to mention all of the rest of the implications that go along with that. But once again, they told us that they were going to do this. They told us that they were going to do a faithful adaptation. Showrunner Freskina Gardner and director Mark Wood said in a joint statement, "We're happy to announce the casting of John Lithgow, Danik McTeer, Paapa Essiedu, Nick Frost, Lork Dallin, Paul Whithouse to play Dumbledore, McGonagall, Snape, Hagrid, Quirrell, and Filch." Once again, ain't got no problems with those ones either. The duo added, "We're delighted to have such extraordinary talent on board, and we can't wait to see them bring these beloved characters to new life." Oh, new life, not be a proper representation. So despite race swapping Severus Snape with Paapa Essiedu, the press release had to get the gall to describe the series as a faithful adaptation. The series will be a faithful adaptation of the beloved Harry Potter book series by author and executive producer J.K. Rowling, and will feature an exciting and talented cast including a new generation of fandom full of the fantastic detail and much-loved characters the Harry Potter fans have adored for over 25 years. This is clearly an outright lie, and absolutely, and like I said, the fans aren't exactly happy about this either, because this is Bill Holt out here. Now, Bill Holt looks like he's probably, he's got a little darkness in him. He's probably a black, you know what I mean? Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's just a different type of slightly dark color. I'm not too worried about it, right? But either way, he's a fan. Right, anti-democrat, yada, 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 all of that kind of fun stuff. He's the exact same kind of people progressives hate. So this is one of the things that, and obviously this is coming from a black man. So this is one of the things that's absolutely fascinating about this, because he points out a lot of the major issues right here. Whoever at HBO needs to hear this. Casting a black African man to play a white British Severus Snape doesn't give me representation at all. It gives me the ick. Because Harry Potter has been around for 28 years and 8 movies, which means you've had exactly that long to create a similar black series of your own. You chose not to. So to make him black now can only be to piss off the white fans that made the series successful in the first place. It won't end well for you. They tried it with The Little Mermaid, lost money. They tried it with Doctor Who, worst ratings in history. They just tried it with Captain America, once again, lost a whole bunch of money. Those 3 flopped because white people boycotted them. I don't understand it was a quote-unquote boycott so much as just we're not interested in more of the race-swapping nonsense. And guess what? A lot of the black people weren't either. And black people don't care about your racism on their behalf to spend their money. The show is obviously being made by people who hate the Harry Potter franchise and its character. And all this ridiculous DEI casting should have stopped by now. But obviously, USAID and the ESG people are paying for it. So it's easy to burn other people's money. Keep it up, Hollywood. I'm laughing at the YouTube critics laughing at you fail, which is exactly what we're doing. This series is DOA, right? And this is one of the other reasons why it's DOA. So obviously, we can talk about J.K. Rowling made it abundantly clear what Snape looks like. As seen in the 10th anniversary collector's edition, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, she shared her own artwork for the character. Snape, as I always saw him, was scribbled back in 92 or 3. Though I've spent years denying that Snape is a vampire, one of the more outlandish and persistent fan theories, I must say he does look like Count Dracula in the cloak. Obviously, this is merchandise right here that came out even before the actual movies and all of that other kind of stuff here. So it's one of them situations where this is where it really comes down to a problem, right? Because if you know the Harry Potter story well, right, there is an absolute major conflict while the kids are in Hogwarts during James Potter, Harry's dad, and Severus Snape and all of the Marauders and all of that kind of stuff, right? There's a lot, and it's not all that much different than what you would see in a modern school era, right? It's kids bullying other kids. It's more well off, more well aloof kids picking on the poorer kids that maybe don't have as much and stuff like that, right? And it's not. You go to any school out there in America and you're gonna see stuff like this, right? It's just the nature of the beast. It's how kids act, right? Unfortunately, and hopefully, most of them all grow up and eventually stop acting like that. It doesn't always happen, but for the most part, it does. So there's very specific scenes, and for any of you major Harry Potter fans out there, and the people that are actually going to hit the like button on this video, and not just roast me as being an ist or a phobe out there in the comment section, you all know this. You all know where I'm going with this, right? Because not only do we have exactly what J.K. Rowling talked about this, but the scenes with James and Severus when they're in school. At one point, James literally hangs Severus from a tree. Now, I think it's technically by his foot, but it's still hanging him from a tree. Now you're also going to have a bunch of white English kids out there picking on the black kid in it as well. If that's not going to come off as racist to anybody with half a brain in their head or very much intentionally trying to push this kind of narrative out there, I don't know what would. So now you turn a guy who is pretty much 90% a villain throughout the entire series, right? Hates Harry Potter from the very get-go because he reminds him so much of James and all the bullying that James did to Severus as a kid in school and everything else. How is all of that going to look now? Harry's suspicious of Severus right from the very get-go of the story. So what? Now he's going to be suspicious of the only black teacher in the entire school? How is this going to come off in the series? So not only is it an affront to the lies you told us about making a faithful adaptation, but now you're going to turn the entire Severus, Harry, James, Lily dynamic into all about a black guy that fell in love with a white girl and is mad at a white boy who picked on him and got the girl, and who's going to hate his white son as soon as he comes to school, and the son's going to automatically be suspicious to him because he's supposed to come off as evil and treacherous and gloomy and, just not somebody that can be trusty and very shifty. Well, now it's going to be looked at as, well, you just don't trust him because he's black. You've literally taken a story about optimism and hope and redemption that is the Harry Potter series, because even Snape gets to redeem himself in the end for all of his past misdeeds and everything else. And literally, you're going to take that now and turn that into a story about racism. Harry Potter over there at HBO Max is dead on arrival, and the confirmation of race-swapping Severus Snape officially confirms this. HBO Max, you're a bunch of morons and idiots. You allowed these decisions to happen, and now you are going to burn hundreds of millions of dollars on a series no one is going to watch. Harry Potter on HBO Max is DOA, and guess what? They did it to themselves.